You're listening to Short History Shorts audio, where history speaks louder than images. The city of Avaris, nestled in the eastern Nile Delta, was more than just the capital of the Hyksos. It was the symbolic heart of a new cultural era in Egypt. For over a century, Avaris stood as a vibrant polyglot hub where Canaanite immigrants, Egyptian traditions, and Near Eastern influences fused into a powerful and unique identity. This city didn't simply serve as a fortress or political seat. It was a living crossroads of civilizations, pulsing with military strength, mercantile ambition, and religious experimentation. Its story is central to understanding how the Hyksos rose to power and how they altered the Egyptian world forever. Long before the Hyksos took power, the site that would become Avaris was already inhabited. During the 12th dynasty, it was a modest Egyptian town known as Hutvaret, strategically located along key trade routes linking the Nile Valley to the Sinai Peninsula and the Levant. Over time, Levantine settlers began to move into the area. These immigrants brought their own burial styles, pottery, and cultural practices, which slowly transformed the town's character. By the 14th dynasty, the Eastern Delta was a patchwork of Egyptian officials, semi-independent towns, and thriving Semitic communities. The weakening of centralized Egyptian rule allowed one of these towns, Avaris, to grow rapidly in power, wealth, and complexity. When the Hyksos emerged as rulers during the 15th dynasty, they chose Avaris as their capital. This was no accident. Avaris already had a strong Semitic population base, extensive trade networks, and a favorable location, close to both the sea and the eastern desert routes. As the Hyksos consolidated power, they expanded Avaris on a grand scale. The city covered over 250 hectares, making it one of the largest urban centers in Egypt at the time. It boasted elaborate mud brick palaces, temples to both foreign and Egyptian gods, administrative buildings, workshops, and massive storage facilities. The city's infrastructure reflected its dual identity, Egyptian in its architectural methods, but Levantine in its urban planning and cultural flavor. Archaeological excavations at Avaris, particularly those led by Manfred Biatak, have revealed a wealth of evidence about the city's hybrid nature. Residential districts contained houses arranged in Near Eastern patterns, with open courtyards and plastered floors. Tombs buried under houses contained weapons, seals, and scarabs bearing both Egyptian and Canaanite motifs. Large granaries and harbour facilities pointed to a booming economy supported by trade in grain, copper, wine, cattle, and luxury goods. Pottery fragments show a mix of Egyptian techniques and Levantine styles, while imported Mycenaean ceramics hint at far-reaching connections across the eastern Mediterranean. The palaces at Avaris were particularly impressive. Built on artificial terraces to withstand the delta's floodwaters, these structures featured multiple rooms, columned halls, storage chambers, and ceremonial courtyards. One palace complex, known as Palace F, contained frescoes in a style remarkably similar to Minoan art from Crete, suggesting the presence of foreign artisans or even political marriages between the Hyksos and Aegean elites. These frescoes show scenes of bull leaping, griffins, and lush natural imagery, unlike anything typically found in Egyptian royal iconography. Such details underscore how Avaris was not simply a foreign copy of an Egyptian city, but a truly cosmopolitan experiment in power and design. Religion in Avaris was as eclectic as its population. The Hyksos honored Egyptian deities such as Seth, who they may have equated with their storm god Baal. Temples at Avaris reveal worship of a wide pantheon, ranging from Hathor and Ptah to Canaanite gods like Resheph, Anat, and Astarte. Altars and votive offerings were deposited in both Egyptian and Semitic fashion, sometimes side by side. This religious blending reflected not just tolerance, but a deliberate strategy of cultural synthesis. The Hyksos sought to legitimize their rule by adopting the religious language of Egypt, while simultaneously honoring the gods of their ancestral homelands. In Avaris, the two traditions became indistinguishable, forming a new style of hybrid devotion. Militarily, Avaris was a bastion of Hyksos power. The city was fortified with strong walls and surrounded by canals, which served both for irrigation and defense. Inside the city, weapon caches included bronze scimitars, spears, and composite bows, many of which were newer in style than anything used in southern Egypt at the time. The horse-drawn chariot, introduced by the Hyksos, was likely stabled and manufactured in or near Avaris. Horse skeletons, chariot wheels and tack have been unearthed from the site, showing that this was not just a capital. It was an arms depot and training ground for the new kind of warfare the Hyksos championed. Economically, Avaris flourished because of its position between Egypt and the broader ancient Near East. Goods flowed into the city from Byblos, Ugarit, Cyprus, and Anatolia. From Avaris, these items were redistributed along the Nile. The Hyksos kings grew rich on these networks, and their capital became a kind of international trade emporium. Egyptian goods like grain and linen went out to the wider world, while tin, copper, ivory, cedarwood, and exotic luxuries came in. Scarabs and seals from Avaris have been found as far afield as Palestine and Crete, bearing witness to the city's far-reaching influence. But Avaris was more than just a centre of Hyksos culture. It was also a symbol of division within Egypt. To Thebans in the south, the city represented foreign occupation, blasphemy, and humiliation. As the 17th dynasty rulers in Thebes began to regain strength, Avaris became their ultimate target. For decades, they prepared to confront the Hyksos militarily. When the final wars of liberation began under Seqenenretau and continued under his successors Kamosi and Amosi, Avaris became the focus of fierce campaigns. Thebes sent troops north, determined to break the power of the Hyksos at its source. The siege and eventual fall of Avaris marked the end of Hyksos rule and the beginning of the new kingdom. Ahmose, founder of the 18th dynasty, famously drove the Hyksos out of Egypt and razed Avaris, or at least occupied and dismantled it. The city lost its political prominence and was eventually abandoned, replaced by the new royal city of Pyrameses in the nearby region centuries later. Yet the memory of Avaris lingered. Egyptian texts vilified it as a den of foreigners and chaos, while archaeological evidence preserved its unique legacy. Today, the ruins of Avaris offer a rare glimpse into a period when Egypt was not isolated or purely Egyptian. It was a globalized kingdom, part of a broader network of migration, trade, warfare, and diplomacy. Avaris stood at the heart of this world, a city where Egyptian priests and Canaanite merchants, Levantine warriors and Aegean artists all crossed paths. It was a city built on adaptation and reinvention, on fusion rather than exclusion. And while its era eventually ended in flames and defeat, its legacy would ripple forward into the empire-building ambitions of the New Kingdom pharaohs, who learned, adapted, and conquered using many of the very tools Avaris had